Welcome to Crossing Faiths. I'm John Pinna, and today we have an old friend and colleague, Mustafa Akhwand, who's the executive director or president of
Executive
Shia Rights,
director, yeah.
executive director of Shia Rights Watch, and a real estate mogul down in Virginia. And so running a few businesses, but you're also a first generation American Muslim who's lived in Iran, lived in Syria, lived in Lebanon, lived and has family that stretches. I'm third generation American Muslim, so I have distant family, but you've lived and touched many of the countries that are on the geopolitical national security blotter. And the reason why I was going to ask you to come on board was to give your sense of some of these issues in countries and what's happening as a sort of snapshot for the new Trump administration and what they should be looking at. And maybe there's some elements they haven't been. So I appreciate you coming on and spending the time.
Sure, definitely. Thank you for having me. It would be exciting to talk about the different issues and different thing that is happening. And me and you are very good friends, and we have worked together. So
Yeah, so I think we can jump right into it. I think a lot of this stuff right now, a lot of the administration is coalescing um, into a functioning entity with the new appointments and getting together the National Security Council and then moving into the appointees in each one of the agencies and so forth. This is a critical time for information to get out there, and both of our careers have been out in the field, but you have a tremendous amount of subject matter expertise in the region, and so I just thought I'd just ask you some bottom line upfront questions, and what are the priorities in these countries? Syria is a good example. Syria hit the news. We didn't know Assad. All of a sudden is toppled. I remember back in like 2010, 2011, the hearings on Cap Hill where Christians would come up and say Assad can't go, because he respects religious minorities, and meanwhile the diaspora that was here was saying he has to go, and the Obama administration was really pressing it. We didn't really know what was going on over the course of those years from the Obama administration to now, but now with the toppling of Assad, what's your what's a snapshot from your perspective of the current situation in Syria and how it relates to what are the top three important elements for Americans to know and for them to consider when it comes to what's happening in Syria right now?
right, right. That's a very important subject. First of all, I'm very optimistic with the new administration, and I think that we can change a lot of issues, and then we can help first American and then the Middle East to come up with a peace. So Syria and definitely Assad with his brutality, upset so many people. But at the same time, when you were saying that a lot of Christians saying that they helping, yes, Assad government was given funding to the minorities in different area of Syria to operate. That was to help them, survive at the same time to vouch for the Syrian government. But brutality was there. The Ba'ath Party that was rooted in Syria and Iraq during the Saddam time, the same brutality was there. And that's, I have seen it myself when I was in Syria and Lebanon, and how the Syrian government and military was treating people. New government, that new people who came, there was a lot of misconception that what is going on. I was one of the people who thought that, okay, massacre will happen, people of minority will be killed. Reality is that right now with the Free Syrian Army, we don't see that much brutality. Here, there are individuals, like in Aleppo, there is so many incidents that we are hearing, but is not the direct attack of the Free Syrian Army. Uh, there are individuals who's going taking revenge from here, there, either is from the old military government or the people who, you know, were helping the government. Right now, everyone is looking. We cannot say with a certainty what is happening exactly over there.
But from your opinion, which
Yeah,
we do in your perspective, and this is you got to. So like some of the listenership, they just know, you know, sort of. So you have ISIS, you have Al Qaeda, you know, and then you have sort of this general sort of group of Muslims, right, who are nonviolent or who are just citizens, right? But then you have the Muslim Brotherhood floating around. Where do you gauge these people? Gauge the current government or those that the Free Syrian Army? Where do you gauge them and their leadership right now in the sort of in the idea that the spans of, you know, we have ISIS and Al Qaeda and then Muslim Brotherhood. You know, you got where do they fit in that spectrum?
That's a very interesting concept. Is that the whoever who put the puzzle together
Right,
knew how to create that puzzle. Al Qaeda came to Afghanistan and saying that we are not the old Al Qaeda, right?
right,
The Syria army, who before some of them were, affiliated with the ISIS as well,
yeah,
that they join together, and Jabhat al-Nusra, who are get joined together and start coming up with the in Syria, they say the same thing that, oh, we are not as brutal that you think, we are not thinking, we are not hardcore, we are trying to change and bring a freedom to the country, right? So whoever who put the puzzle together
yeah,
exactly knew how they can uh, picture it that everyone see safe haven.
right,
But what is happening right now is I mean, I'm not a politician, but as a human rights activist, I can tell you that right now we are debating what is the future of the minorities in Syria.
right,
Uh, it could be a Shia Muslims, it could be Christians, it could be anyone who Druze who are there, and what are the future in Afghanistan? We don't know yet. A
mm,
lot of people, let's say, because the same ideology is coming up in this, if you look at it in Syria and Afghanistan, they are the same ideology.
yeah,
They're coming up. A lot of people were against them in Afghanistan. Right now, they are saying that we are happy because we don't see corruption.
sure,
Yes, there is a oppression of the girls and the schools, but I don't see a corruption. I don't fear to go outside. Same
right,
thing is happening in Syria. I mean, at the same time that I was personally against, not against the change of the government in Syria, against of this new administration to come because we don't know who they are, and there was so many affiliation of the ISIS.
right. I mean, the biggest fear was if you get rid of Assad, then what's next? And we don't know what's behind that, right?
Exactly,
And
exactly.
and like you're saying, Al Qaeda is different now. It's, you know, I always say there's very few of the old guard left, and then
Mhm.
there's like a bunch of young guys who are trying to be like the old guard, but they're not hardened terrorists like those guys were. And then you have this sort of criminal element, right? This that I there's the Al Qaeda's use this. They have vast networks and resources, and there's guys that are in charge that said, "Hey, we can make a lot of money doing this. Let's run contraband on medical supplies from the UN, you know, that type of thing." And so, you know, this group that's in charge, if or that's taken over, is really the latter, right? It was a criminal enterprise. You know, you're the younger guys, they're tied to the ideology, but very loosely, and now they've taken over. So now ideology has to be translated into political policy,
Yeah.
right? And so they're wrestling with all this stuff, but they're not great guys, you know.
They are not, but as the same time that I complain about a lot of issues that is happening, I hope they listening to this podcast because I know I have heard your previous podcast. I would like to thank them as well because they protected some of the minorities and the Shia shrines in Damascus.
Yeah.
It could be a disaster, but they went over there and they visited the people who were working over there. They said, we are not against you. I mean, I like to thank them for that. We shouldn't always complain and give them a bad side of it. Yes, so that was the thing that made the people to be optimistic that okay, something is happening.
Yeah.
uh, yes,
Like the
sure.
Taliban. The Taliban was really interesting when they took over. It was like Taliban 2.0, and these are young guys that are everybody went to college in the West. They're all and so even when they took over, it was during Muharram, and
Yes,
they were protecting the Shia in the South going to the mosques. So they're protecting the holy sites, which was unheard of in the back in the day. So
definitely.
it's a different animal, although we don't know what it is and we don't know what's going to become of it, because it's very difficult when these groups try to form governments, as you and I both know.
So the question you had with the new administration and what they can
Yeah,
do.
like what should they be
Because,
looking at? I mean,
you
you
know,
know,
I know
Syria,
it's especially in Syria, there is so many sanctions that need to be lifted, and the new groups are asking to those sanctions to be lifted. So we can uh, work it out with the new administration, whatever new government that you were saying that in the Syria, to respect the minorities, every one of them. I mean, I work with the Shia Rights Watch, and I, promote the rights of the Shia Muslims, but at the same time, the rights of all the minorities is the most important. The human rights is the most important thing that we have to focus on. Because if we protect one minority and leave another minority alone, we'll create another conflict.
right? And we've worked for a long time on shared persecution of any religion, of religious peoples and minorities, and under the auspices of dignity of the human person. So, like I know we've advocated for Coptics and this and that. So you can't just focus on one, but
Yeah, definitely,
you're
definitely. Because
you're
the
yeah you're
coexistence is the most important thing.
yeah,
If you are coexisting and you're respecting each other, you will not never have an issue. I mean, uh, I don't want to create. I mean, put take the podcast toward the religion and everything else, but the whole core religion of Islam is teaching you that during the even time of Prophet, all the religion were there. The Prophet were respecting them and saying you are free to do whatever you want,
sure,
right?
yeah,
So if we believe on that, we have to understand that any country we are at,
yeah.
we have to respect each other. Right now, me and my neighbor are living in this.
I have this book. I was just talking about this book yesterday because it's the covenants of the prophet with the Christians of the world. So this is all the this book, and it's got
Yes.
all the covenants, all the treaties that the prophet made with all the Christian communities in the Middle East, and they're
Yeah,
still
definitely.
enforceable. That's
Definitely. The thing is, when people take these to the politic, all the issues happening. Me and my neighbor right now, we live in the same country, in the same neighborhood. I don't know what is their religion. They don't know what is my religion. And unless they see my, wife with a hijab, they say, okay, she's a Muslim, or she could be another religion. But we never talk about the religion. We talk about the current situations. The
yeah,
same thing can happen. And new administration right now going and talking to the new administration of the Syria, bringing those human right issues and talking about, okay, how they can get protection, right? And giving them a seat to talk. We have a IRF roundtable that we have in DC, right?
right,
Even they disagree with each other, they sit down and talk.
right,
You know, we can have the same conversation over there. Yes, not everyone will be happy, but at least you can be heard and see what can be done over there. And bring in the people who are not having affiliation with any countries.
yeah,
Biggest issue is because if I kick my kids out of my house, my neighbor will come and, take over and
right,
talk to my kids, right? The same thing is happening in Syria, it's happening in Iraq, it's happening in Pakistan. If I'm not respecting my own citizen, this citizen will see who is respecting them, who give them a funding. They are starving, right?
right,
So having those and we are trying to save our pictures. We are trying to do our best to show that America and the human rights is something that is a core root of United States, right?
Right.
So for doing that, we have to act on it and believe on it as well. Because
Well,
sometimes,
well,
that's
here,
go ahead.
well, here's a question for you. Like, so, I remember, they're doing constitutional formation right now
Mhm.
in Syria, and I remember Jarrah, right, the government of the Islamic Republic of Afghanistan. I remember the Constitution, and
Mhm.
that Constitution was a very there was a strong Western overlay.
Yeah.
So, and we were talking about international religious freedom. We're talking about religious freedom, and I was doing an analysis in the field,
Mhm.
and so it's in the Constitution, and there's the UDHR in the Constitution. So there's all that there, and so here it is outlined in the Constitution, and this is like a cultural competency question, right? So we, what's Earth, because we're Americans, right? It's freedom to
Yeah.
believe, to not believe, to change and choose. Religion.
Mhm.
So I remember being out in Herat, and we were doing surveys on religious freedom, and
Mhm.
the right away, the sheriffs, those old guys, and they're sitting there go, yeah, well, yeah, we know what religious freedom is, and they go, well, we're, but we're persecuted. And I said, why, how are you persecuted religious? Like, these are the old guys,
Yeah,
the council of elders, right?
definitely.
And they're like,
Definitely.
we're persecuted. And I said, well, how are you persecuted? And they go, my brother-in-law is practicing witchcraft, and he's putting a spell on me, and so, and it was really funny because I had to scratch my head. I go, what? I go, what's going on? And he goes, that's, it's he's religiously persecuting me. I go, it's not what it means, you
Mhm.
know. And it doesn't mean that your brother-in-law is, giving you the evil eye, you know. and
Yeah.
it's that, and you guys are the same faith, and he's just doing it because he doesn't like you, And so they were submitting reports that had all kinds of interesting, strange things that was cultural, and I think a lot of people. The reason why I'm laughing is a lot of people don't realize that you can put something in paper and say, well, it's right here, it's religious freedom, respecting religious minorities. But the challenge is that when it comes to religious persecution, some of these things, it doesn't translate well if we're not managing expectations on the local level, or with communities.
No, definitely. This is very important thing that we have to consider, and I hope the new administration uh, look at it as well. The way that we are looking at in the U.S. and the West, the way we are looking at the conflict resolution, the way we are looking at the human rights, the way we are looking at the religion is way different than what we see in the Middle East or Africa. The
Right.
conflict resolution, is the way I solve the conflict and the way they solve the conflict is two different way. We have seen that when we went as a U.S. and the military, and I know you are very familiar with it in Iraq. You know,
Yeah.
the way we could talk to the men and women was different. We could
Right.
solve so many issues, if we had understanding, if we had a correct understanding of how to deal with the people over there. We are taking ourselves, we are taking the people, we taking advice of the people who never been in that underground, who never
Right.
lived with those people, and we think that okay, this is the way to solve it. You know what? Human rights to me is this and that. For them is not there. If you're talking about the, let's say, freedom, for them
Yeah.
is the freedom of buying food is the most important thing. I'm thinking that okay, freedom of belief of my kids, okay, you know what, how the way you want to wear your clothes, the way you want to believe, the way you want to pray or don't pray, these are the things for us. The principle for us and them is two different things. So
Sure.
if the new administration take a take a time and find a good advisor who are not first affiliated with any entity or government. Second, have a core understanding of what is happening on the ground. And they lived more than 10 years in those countries, you
Right.
know. to understand the people, to understand the way everything is work, definitely will have a better change rather than taking someone from outside. I remember one time I was in the Department of States and talking to someone, one of the country's desk officer, and I'm like, "Have you been in the country?" He's like, "No." I'm like, if
Right.
you are not there, how you can talk to the people and how you can uh, give advice of that country. That's a big issue that we have
Sure.
right
Well, a lot of the sort of religious and tribal leaders that are in these countries spend 95% of their time on community care. Like
now.
dealing with like we have older people in the country like aldermans,
Yeah,
and I don't know, most people know what that is. That's aldermans, to deal with all of they deal with the municipalities, so public works and the fire department, police department, everything else. They can get a call at 2 a.m. and say my neighbor is making too much noise, and then you're responsible for it, right? um,
hmm,
that's the role of tribal and religious leaders in Muslim countries by and large. They're just taking calls, and they're dealing with family issues. They're dealing with issues within their community. You and I know the guys, the Sistani guys, right, really really well. Those guys that are just focusing on community care most of the time, and their interpretation of religious freedom, for example, is the freedom to worship, to spend time with your family, to spend time with your community, to maintain, to be free to leave to Salat out and go to and go to Juma on Friday. That's what it is. And then on a larger scale, like sort of like community, it's like, I'm not sure what's going on over there with the Coptic Christians, but they're free to do whatever they want too, and that it's kind of like this sort of separation, but it's like they can do whatever they want. And then of course then there's when communities interact with each other, there might be some issues there, but it's still not religious freedom. It comes from a community care because they're all Iraqis, for example, or all Syrians, right?
yeah.
So that it's a different perspective, that where it's more like freedom to worship, freedom to assemble, freedom to interact, rather than some of the freedom to believe, to not believe, to change and choose, because the majority of the country, it's very homogeneous in many respects. Even though it's Coptic Christians and might be Muslims, that the worship, the worship, the daily worship, the daily adherence to community and family is relatively the same. Would you agree?
Yeah, 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 definitely, definitely. That's why I say, we have to have people who can advise and who can give you a right perspective. And we might not like it, but the reality on the ground in different countries is sometimes I want to give an example, but I don't want the listener to think that, oh, I'm pro this government or against this government. So I'm trying to keep my cool and talk about because
Right.
the reality on the ground is much different.
Yeah.
When we were focusing on the ISIS discrimination and the crimes in Iraq, we were talking and we had so many evidence of, if you remember, we had so many Yazidis who came here and talk
Yeah.
about this, crimes against the Yazidis and Christians. And someone asked me that why you don't have a Shia who come and, there was no discrimination against them. I said, believe me, if you see the numbers and you talk to those Yazidis and Christian who were abducted, abused, sold, and killed, you can see that the biggest number of the people who got killed were the Shias. They're
Well,
like, why they don't talk about those?
it, there was
You know,
such a big fight with Kerry. Remember, we were trying to just get,
yes,
so it was to get Muslims included in the genocide designation, and even still, it's Yazidis, Christians, Yazidis, and other religious minority. It's an unspecified. And
the last document it changed and said even included the Shia. The reason was that the most, especially in Iraq. I mean, you have a campus spiker that is talking about the varies of the numbers is between 1,700 to 3,000 people who were slaughtered in one day.
yeah,
right? So I was like, I want to come to this point that uh, when I was talking, going on the ground, talking to the people and looking at the, talking to the girls and the women who were abused, sexually abused, and by ISIS, I'm like, can you come forward and talk about those issues? Because people and the world have to hear that.
Yeah.
The head of the tribe would come to me and say, please leave. We
Yeah.
don't want this because our tribe, this is very bad to talk about those, right?
Yeah.
So word doesn't come out because of the tribal issue, because of the family issue.
Yeah.
Some other people, they are like, you know what? I'm giving up everything. I'm giving up my tribe. I will talk about it. But
Yeah.
there are a lot of people in Iraq, especially with the ISIS, that include the Shias, Yazidis, Christians, and the Sunnis, who were abused, who were tortured, but they never talked about it. And
Yeah.
for us, we highlighted something that we wanted as a politician, and
Yeah.
we didn't talk about some issues.
Yeah.
That's why right now in some of the countries in the Middle East, I used to go with my American passport and be very proud that I'm an American and I'm traveling. Right now, I have to hesitate a little bit because our picture is not a good picture right now in the Middle East.
Right.
Keep
Yeah.
it or not, you like it or not. Yes, as a politician, me going with I don't know if the politician have a different passport or not, but going to the country, going to the embassy, coming out, everything is a safe haven. But the reality is on the ground, the military members, service members who are on the ground and they getting out of the bases, or the American citizen who are going to the different countries in Middle East, a little bit they have a fear of, I might be kidnapped, I might be disrespected even
Yeah.
because I'm an American. And I
Yeah.
like, as an American, I like to change that. And it's
Yeah.
very easy to do.
Yeah. Well, we have an opportunity, I think, in this new administration, like I think that the idea, Trump, whatever he says he's going to do, he does, right? So you and I, we were heavily involved, in the last Trump administration. Like I was, how tirelessly I worked to get religious minorities into the White House, and I think, and you were there that first time we actually had. It's the
Definitely.
first time the White House had ever done this, and this is under the Trump
You
administration,
have so many
where
pictures.
we had the four Shia and four Sunni maktabs all sitting at a table with the White House. That was the first time that's ever happened in the history of our country,
Yeah.
And it was, because me, I'm just a guy who's trying to bring everybody to the
Yeah,
table
that was the opportunity to raise our voice and talk to the
and then
administration.
figure out, yeah. And it was just, chat, be able to say, we have unity of mission on these issues. This is something specific to us because we're dealing with, Iran or this or that. But there was the first time that we had the mainstream Islam, as outlined in the Amman message, the eight maktabs sitting there and discussing stuff with the White House. And it's a profound moment. Wasn't a big meet. There wasn't a media pop. There wasn't this. Was nobody. But but the thing is that it was so important. And this administration, the Trump administration, does listen. We have the other stuff going on where, we've got, the Muslim ban and maybe 2.0 and all some of these other things that are going on, and all that has to muddle through. But we're dealing with national security and immigration issues. So, and really, it's the thing that you and I are talking about right now, where the government, when the government doesn't know, they bring people in that know less, and then
Yeah.
make decisions, and
Yeah.
then it gets really, really bad. So when we were sitting there, like I said, I don't. Trump was not in the room, but all his special assistants were there, and it was a profound moment in time to be heard, and where mainstream Islam on the Sunni Shia side are sitting there talking with the administration, and I'm hopeful that will happen again. I communicate with every administration. I don't know if you could see it, but I have my signed presidential pictures all the way through the back here. But um, the challenge is that we're right at the beginning, and that's why this conversation is profound. It's like, how do we, how do we go about it? And I think that what you're saying is And I'm echoing what you're saying is that there needs to be engagement, right? Remember, you're talking about the roundtable. The reason why the roundtable works is not because we disagree. It's not because we're really that different. It's none of those things. It's the fact that we build relationships and feel comfortable. What do I do when I'm at the roundtable? Everybody's talking, and I get up and I go over and I grab your arm and I whisper in your ear, we got this problem in northern Pakistan. Do you know anything about that? And at the Johnny P walk, they call, Seipel would call it, and he'd be like, you're always talking to people while you're doing stuff. It's like, because I'd rather, I feel comfortable because I know everybody, and I think that having those relationships are really important. With the new government in Syria, or even the Iranian regime, we need to communicate. We need to engage. It can't be through social media or by rumor or by proxy. And so
The conversation, the realities conversation is happening there.
Yeah.
But they always, I don't want to take your podcast to the politics, but they always there's going to be a boogeyman over there that have to help us. Uh, we don't want to get involved with the politics, but focusing on the human rights, the conversation between them somehow, somewhere is happening. But for us to be able to engage and communicate, as you were saying, and bringing the stuff that people are suffering on the ground, and it's very easy. Believe me, there is very easy solution if we take the third parties out and go ourselves on the ground. And there are so many stories in Middle East that is happening that you see corruption is more than the help that these people are getting on the ground.
Or the information we're getting is not because someone talked to them, someone spoke to them. It's all something that's been regurgitated, or people have, and I'm a perpetrator of this. All right. So like, I'll give you a really good example. I in every IRF report, International Religious Freedom Report, one done by the Department of State and then one done by USCIRF, there's a people in northern Pakistan called the Kalasha, right? And there's three valleys, and it's north of Chitral. Chitral, the Mahesh Mali brothers, so they, like, that's a stronghold. So I've for 10 years I've been writing articles about religious persecution of the Kalasha people, and I've been taking Form 18, I've been taking the reports, and I've been aggregating, because the numbers went from about 15,000 people down to 3,000 people. Sounds like religious persecution, right?
Yep.
So I just, after writing these articles over 10 years and being very nervous, my family, like, we're Indo-Greek, right? So you can tell by the nose. So we're right on the other side. We're from right on the other side of Chitral. So we're right over the mountain is where my family's from. So I have this sort of personal thing and this professional thing, right, going on, because I'm a human rights guy and religious. So I just felt like, we can't let these people, they're cousins, So what did I do? I reached out to the Kalasha Development Authority, the tribal chiefs, and the religious leaders, and we got on a conference call. And this is 2 weeks old.
Yeah.
And they said, and I said, I'm really, I'm trying. I don't want to advocate for you guys without speaking directly to you. There's NGOs. There's an NGO in London, and there's one over here, and I spoke to them. But I wanted to really kind of just engage you, and my first language was Indo-Greek, so I was hitting them up with a few terms and language, that I remember, and I chatted with them a little bit, and they go, "We live side by side with our Muslim brothers and sisters," and I was like, "What?" And they go, "No, religious persecution is not the issue; it's livelihoods." It's like, "What do you mean?" And so they can't earn a living in the three valleys, so people are leaving and going to the city, and then they lose their numbers and their population and their culture. And the best way I can describe this is like, I ran a small organization in Gilgit-Baltistan, and they were talking about how there was systemic racism and bigotry towards the Gilgittis, and they weren't hiring these people. And I said, well, what's the problem? And they said, well, it's a terrible situation. So I went there for 3 years, and it turns out that there's a river,
Yeah.
and it's 50 miles to the bridge, and then they have to go down. So you can't commute every day to the town where there's work. So we built a footbridge that made it 3 miles. And then all of a sudden they started hiring these guys, right? And so it was a topographical issue, right? It had nothing to, but because we are so passionate about human rights, it had to be racism, it had to be bigotry, it had to be something, and it wasn't. It was like, can we build a footbridge? And when you talk to the people on the ground, it could be wholly different than what we think it is. And the challenge is we have a lot of information that just isn't right. It isn't correct.
But
And
definitely, I mean, we see that a lot, especially
yeah,
in our organization. When the reports come, that there's a discrimination. This guy, especially right now in Syria, and they are talking that this guy was prosecuted because he's a Shia. This happened. So I'm like, okay, no problem. We have people on the ground in every single country that they can, fact check everything. And we go forward. We see, no, this was either tribal issue or the neighboring issue. I'm like, there is nothing that I can include this in my report, or defend you in any sort of shape, because they has nothing to do with the religion.
right.
Definitely, there are misinformation, miscommunication, and everything that is happening,
Yeah.
but that doesn't, one of the, a strong thing that organizations have right now, and they are working together, is that they fact checked everything, and then make sure, especially us in the organization, we make sure that if we give you a numbers 10, is
Yeah.
reality is 10.
Well, you're good with
I'm
that. You're good with
exaggerating.
data.
Yeah.
You guys are, Shia Rights Watch is really good with data. I know
Yeah,
you're very
so
judicious.
exaggeration is not happening.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not gonna come and lie to you because I want to work with you.
Yeah.
You know, as much as I'm credible and give you a fact and the right information, and we have a very good organization. I mean, I don't want to say that there are so many organizations who are doing their best to do that, and we
Yeah.
have to give them a credit. But working with those organization is the most important thing. I mean, you were on the ground in Gilgit-Baltistan, as you're saying, so you know the situation, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I cannot come and talk about this situation because I've never been there,
Right.
right? I hear it from different people. Yes, some of them I combine together and talk when I want to talk, but the reality is the person who was there, the person who saw the suffering, the person who saw that, okay, this is not the conflict, this is not the issue, this is something that someone want to take it, take the profit or take the, land. So if we know these facts and these realities, we can affect more and more rather.
It, it makes sense. Like there might be, like I said, it could be what's a genocide could be going on, but it might not be religious in nature. It might be ethnic in nature. And if we don't find out what the primary, secondary, tertiary causes are, we're really directing funding in the wrong area or policy or whatever it is. And that's the thing that I've been discovering. I mean, I've known it and I've been part of this for a long time, but it's how you can get caught up in the earth, the religious freedom movement or the persecution movement or the genocide movement, and you're counting on this information to be valid, but you got to go deeper into it a little bit, and so. If Shia are persecuted, if you're saying Shia are the most persecuted religion in the world, and it's because they're persecuted in 166 countries. But in, some of those countries, just one Shia, they may not be the most persecuted, but the way in which you're measuring it,
Mhm, mhm.
could be interesting. So, but so when we're talking about like some of the current administration, and as they're hiring people, they're appointing people, they're setting policy. The Middle East is a Biden failure. Afghanistan is a Biden failure. The Ukraine is a Biden failure. Previous administration failures, and Trump has promised to rectify these. So, what's the strategy? In Syria is a big one. Iraq is another one. Lebanon. What would you say? What would be the top things you would say to the administration as to how to approach the Middle East, maybe just in general, or we don't get too much specificity with each country, or unless you would like to. But what's the approach besides just
I mean,
engagement
see,
and
the thing is that uh, every government that comes, they inherit something from the previous government.
yeah, yeah,
So we cannot discredit that government or give more credit to this government. But the reality is that right now we have to work with this government to change, to make more change. And if what they are saying is true, that let's make America great again, let's really make it great again,
yeah,
and bring those changes. First, I say that bring the right advisor, bring the people who are not there because they want to get paid, who are
right.
there they want to,
Or want to build a resume.
yeah, exactly.
That's
Bring the people who want to have a change and see the change. That's that, you know so many audits that can happen. I mean, I'm not expert on that, but sitting with the people and talking, you can say, tell, and who's trying to build their own resume, or who is trying have a change.
yeah,
And definitely, if someone come and say that, let's protect this minority and leave the other minority, if I were the one who hiring, I would not hire them,
right.
because every coexistence will solve the conflict. Coexistence will solve so many issues that is happening, right?
Yeah,
And then working with the different governments, we have a leverage as a U.S. Government. We can have a change. We can put the pressures. We have some sanctions that we can put in different countries. We have some sanctions that we have to lift from some of the countries.
right.
Condition it, let them change something in the government. Pakistan is one of the things, and we had a meeting with the Pakistani ambassador so many times, and we were promised that change will happen, especially in Parachinar. Parachinar, there are trucks, hundreds of trucks outside the road. There is one path toward Parachinar.
Right.
They are there sitting with the medicine and the food, and people are starving, people are getting killed, and military doesn't let them to go in. you know these are the things we can change. Sometimes this change is very small according to us, but in that country will save our face and will help us and help the people over there, because we are taking the flag up that, okay, we are for a human rights, we are for a change. That the best pathway to do that. Let's regain what we were talking about, and we were aiming, and we were hoping, and our constitution is helping it as well. We have all these that we can do.
I mean, what do you think of like with Syria, where you open up a consulate there that doesn't do anything with immigration, but just focuses on economic development, human rights, and national security issues important to the United States. Doing something like that in Afghanistan, Syria, Yemen's the places where we've evacuated from, and so at least we have eyes and ears on the ground and can start building direct relationships with the regimes that are there. What do you think of that?
If I were in the government, I would take a representative of different faiths that they are in the country. Tell them that, hey, we're gonna have round table, whatever you want to call it, in this country, and as you are protected by the U.S. government, let's go over there and ask them for, even if you don't want to pay for their ticket. I'm the one that is gonna be the first one pay for my own ticket to go there with the protection of the U.S. government. Go there, sit down with the community, sit down and talk and see what are the ways to solve the issue? What are the ways that we can help each other? Because if we hear from the people on the ground, and see, okay, we are setting a constitution in Syria, let's say, we are trying to have a change. We are done with the past regime. We are bringing freedom to the country. Very nice. Let
Yeah.
me hear what is your problem. Because me sitting outside and talking about it and thinking that, okay, this constitution will work over there would not solve anything. On the ground, people have different issues. So getting, having different conversation uh, on the ground by the U.S. government, that would help a lot.
So you're an advocate of like the special envoy system of like getting people on the ground, engaging, and making sure that they're bringing back that as a courier that information back to the United States to help foreign policy.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it could be, I mean, economically would help us,
Yeah,
politically will help us as a government. And this is what we're aiming for. This is the new administration is saying that we want to have a government that our priority is the U.S. and U.S. citizen.
yeah.
Definitely nice. We have U.S. citizen everywhere in the countries in the world. So we are to, our aim is to protect them at the same time protect our economy and protect our government. So we have to take a different pathway for it.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. I mean, like you said, the direct engagement it makes such a difference being on the ground and engaging with people, speaking language, chatting around with, slotting up with everybody, having food, grabbing, it makes a difference because then people talk. And then if you can engage all the communities, it makes a difference. I mean, I think the challenge is like you said, there's so many people that are just bunkered in Washington looking for a title and a salary and a resume and to build a resume, but they haven't really been on the ground. And if they have, they've been bunkered in the embassy, right? So they haven't been out. It's only people that come in, and
I
you.
understand the fear. I understand the fear of the uh, people who go and they stay in the embassy in different countries. I understand their fear. I had this fear when I was going and traveling.
Yeah,
It's not easy. And
yeah,
I understand the needs of economical support to live in this country. Definitely, I understand that.
yeah.
But there is some. That's why I have different. My
That's
passion.
not the job, though. That's not the
That's not
job.
the job
That's not
exactly.
the job. So it's
Yeah,
like everybody
yeah,
wants to be a
yeah.
diplomat, but they don't
Every
want to
one
do
of
something
us is
terrible.
trying to, especially as a human right
Yeah,
defender and a human right activist,
yeah,
there is no way you can make money. So we have a different job, side job that we are doing. We have a side hustle that we are doing to
right.
survive. At the
Yeah,
same time, we have a passion. We could live our life easy and not care about anything.
yeah.
We
Well,
are caring. So
you're right. When I was in Afghanistan, it was really funny. I was living in Chelsea Tune, right? So I was down in the southern part, right at the beginning of the Lullandar Road, the Death Road, and I would drive to the embassy. And it was funny because, the security guys, they'd have to justify who what they're doing. And they'd say, you came down the Dollarman Road. It's coded red. It's coded black. This is coded, they code all these things. I was like, there's nothing there. And I was like, are you guys just making this up? you know and it was funny. I had the director of education, because it was American University, was my project. And he's like, I'm having, I got foreign nationals here, I'm trying to build a relationship with them, what do I do? And I was like, go to talk to, order in from, because he couldn't leave the embassy. I said, order in from Shinwari Karai, and just bring some Karai in from Shinwari, and they'll be your friends forever. And he was like, really? And then that's what he did. And he's like, everybody went nuts. And I go, yeah, and this is like simple, cultural competency, food diplomacy. It helps that I have some Afghan blood in me, right? So, but the challenge was that none of these security guys were ever out to gauge the roads, to gauge what was going on from a security factor, but they were marking the maps and restricting travel. You know, and then in the same respect, people weren't. The director of education for the American University of Afghanistan, who had been there for years and years and years, didn't even know what Karai was.
see that's the thing. As I said, I
Crazy
understand
town.
the fear. I
Yeah.
understand what is the rules and regulations that is comes with the job. But if the communication is there, if the engagement with the different members of different communities there, I remember when I was asking the our embassy to talk to some of the member of minority in different countries, such as Saudi Arabia. They,
No.
people would not come and talk to them. They are like, I've been controlled. I don't want to go there and then end up in the prison, right?
Yeah.
So you
Right.
have people of the minority who has a fear of talking to the U.S. government as well.
Yeah.
I understand those, but there is so many ways of the communication. We are not trying to, let's not, because when it's straightforward, when you talk to the Middle Eastern about this, they are like, oh, we are not a spy, you know?
Yeah.
I'm sure you have heard that so many times.
I say and my response is everyone's a spy. Everyone. So
No,
everybody.
is they think that okay, I'm trying to give up something and trying to give up something of my country. No, is the communication is something. I have a suffering. If I cannot talk about it, if I cannot relate that to you, if I cannot show you what is a suffering, how I expect you to understand it?
Well, we've seen a steady decline in the art of public diplomacy. I mean, it's we've had a record amount of closing of embassies. Where the individuals that are in State Department presently, a lot of them don't engage directly. Everything is through remotely or through data through the AI and all this other stuff. I mean, we're in a proxy war with Russia, and they pulled out the all non-essential and some essential personnel from the Moscow embassy instead of being forward and putting people there to engage so there's communication with the Russians. You know what I mean? And so the challenge is that the whole point of an embassy, the whole point of special envoys and all this other stuff is to engage, and they should be traveling and not just traveling to say, oh, you want to know what, great meeting, hope to see them again, looking forward to some progress. They should have a laundry list of the items that they're coming back home with. They said this and this. These are the items that are important. This is primary, secondary, tertiary. Here's the bottom line up front. You want to know what? Syria is forming a government. They are trying to put a constitution together. They need help because they've never done that. We're talking about militia that's trying to put together a constitution. So who do we get to do that? Do we get people that haven't been in the country, or do we find a group of people that have and that understand constitutional formation and can contextualize it?
Yeah.
And I think those are the conversations that aren't happening. And with this administration, there's an opportunity for that, where instead of thinking I'm going to find the expert or the gatekeeper, then you find some experts and build a brain trust around the specific issues, and then have them directly engage with the communities that are directly affected by it. And one of the communities that's directly affected by it is the American taxpayer, like us. So we want to know. There's such a tremendous anxiety in how we spend the foreign assistance budget and our defense budget when it related to our allies or those that are in need. And there needs to be some kind of weird accountability, and we want to make sure people can make those decisions based on data and direct information from the ground. And then that's what you do at Shia Rights Watch. You guys are very, very good with data and extremely judicious, maybe too judicious, but you guys are judicious. Because I remember asking, we chatted about some things. So like, what's going on here? And you're like, I don't have any data on that. So so I think I think it's sound advice to the government. You're saying we need to let's kind of look at everything as a brand new issue,
Yeah.
and find the right people that we can bring and have them sitting at the table while engaging. Am I reading that right?
Definitely, definitely. And at
Yeah.
the same time, as a U.S. citizen, I I I understand and I believe in some of the changes that the new administration is trying to bring on. But picturing it is the most important thing. We had the past, the same administration when the previous time was like, okay, this situation of Muslim ban, this and that.
Yeah.
As re reality, it will affect the Muslims, yes, reality is affecting Muslims? Like, I don't know, have you been Muslim random Muslim checked in the airport?
I'm always checked. I've never made it through the airport without being stopped. Um, and I actually had an incident where I was pulled off a plane because someone was uncomfortable with me being there.
Mm-hmm.
And it was funny because the troopers, this is New York State, the troopers came in, pulled me off the plane, and they said, and I walked, they said, what's going on? And I was like, am I going to make my flight? And he was like, you're not going to make anything. He was like a real jerk. And I was like, what happened? He goes, you had a weapon in your bag. And when they tried to stop you, you ran. This is what he said. And I go, so this is
What are
Newburgh
you
Airport.
talking about?
This is Newburgh Airport. Like the gate is the size of my house, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if you know that if you go to that airport, there's one stall to go through security, and then there's stairs going up, and there's like 5 gates. And I sat at the gate for like an hour, right? So it was totally made up.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem is that someone saw me, didn't like the way I looked, and one of the TSA people was like, that guy's on a plane. So he reported it, and they
You had
pulled me out.
one of your famous hats on.
I had, of course, so here's the funny thing. Like, I'm a New Yorker, I'm a Hudson Valley boy, and so it was really funny. I was like, boy, you're really excited about this, and he was like, because I was like, you really think, and he's like, well, you speak really good English, and I should, because I'm from the Hudson Valley. I was like, what are you talking about? And so the fact that I was able, and here's the other thing. I've worked for the government, national security. I've worked in national security most of my life. It was all this kind of stuff came out, and then everybody was like, "Oh my God, we're so sorry." I was like, "Well, how does it get to the point where I board the plane after an hour sitting in the gate, and then this story comes that there was a weapon and I ran?" I mean, where was anybody when that happened? I said, "Let's pull the tape. Let's pull." And they were like, "Well, obviously it was sensationalized, but we have to react to what people say." And I go,
They
"Is the
reacted
TSA?"
fast. It's like 1 hour.
Well, I said, "Is the TSA guy going to get disciplined for that?" Like it's completely made up. And there's not only is there no proof, it's just, it shows it was just false. And the challenge is that I did this when I was at AIC, the witness series. It's like, they shut down the gate, they shut down the security checkpoint. I was sitting there, they were going through bags, and then here was the funny part. Then I go back on the plane, I reboard the plane because they shut down the airport. And so now I'm on an entire flight to Nevada with everybody who knows that I was pulled off the plane. Like, how crazy is that? So like everybody's like, this guy, and they're like, I don't know what he did to talk his way out of it. Like it was like that type of thing. But I was like watched like a hawk, and like anything I did, everybody was all jittery. So it was like you could, and when I went to the washroom, you can imagine I'm walking and like the eyes, like everybody was like, they were just trying to melt me, like that witch in Wizard of Oz. They wanted to pour water on me. And so I think the challenge is like you and I deal with this. I have a different take on Islamophobia. I think people are afraid of Muslims, and
They
I
are. They are. That's the thing. Everything go back to the education and the communication and
right.
understanding of how people are living. I mean,
It's
one time
okay.
one time when I was coming back from
Yeah.
Iraq, it's like I've been pulled to the TSA and asking me a question. I'm like, oh, is there one of those Muslim random check again? It's like, what are you talking about? I said, can you look around? Do you see, beside the Muslims and Asian, do you see anyone else here? And she started laughing. It's like, no, no, no. You came from the country that is concerning. I'm like, I understand that, but you
Yeah.
can't, you cannot pull me over because just I came from that country. And at least understand. At the same time, I was leaving from here to Iraq, and someone said, "Hey, you going for a pilgrim?" I'm like, "Yes." And he's like, oh, I used to be serving as military over there, and I understand it. I was like, thank you very much for understanding.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, I have a different. I have a sort of, the one that the takes is that, Islamophobia is real. It's the challenge is that everyone who saw them check me at that airport, they know the airport was shut down. Everybody was late to their flight. Um, Everybody knew that what was going on, and then I'm standing there, and they're checking me, and there's like little kids there, and those little kids, all they did was saw a guy in a funny hat with a beard, and they were not getting on their flight. The airport was shut down, and they were doing a security check, and so. And like, I know, but our listeners are going to say, well, there was 9/11, and then there's,
I
so
bet that was the most uncomfortable flight that you had.
oh, it was crazy. It was 4 hours. It's 4 hours to Vegas. 4.5 hours. So you're flying there, and everybody's just like, this guy. And then when I landed, it was one of those things where like he must have, he's at the baggage check, and it must be in that bag. Like I don't, there's nothing. Like I don't even pack my bag. I just throw everything in. Everything's like free range. So. But it's really funny because here's the reality: is Islamophobia is real. And I think everybody always tries to go the other way. I think there needs to be a lot of sensitivity to people that are afraid and have that fear. And so, and I think the wrong way to address it is to shame someone, right? So, like I wear my dopey all the time. I run a business. I think it's important to be outwardly Muslim, and a lot of it has to do with solidarity with my, hijabi sisters and stuff like that. But you're not. And that's what the podcast is about. People can see us talking about this. I mean, I think twice before I travel. I go, do I really have to go?
See, that's a job of American society and our neighbors. And we had
Yeah,
this conversation one time, I think, in the Department of States. They were talking about how we can face the ISIS and how we can
right.
deal with ISIS and the situation. I said, this is the job of my neighbor who come and say that, you know what, I'm a neighbor of this Muslim guy. I've never seen anything beside, saying hi and bye, and never heard or see something that is extreme. So because we are given a wrong education, and see that discrimination, that Islamophobia in the cities and the states there is a lot of immigration, we don't see it that much because
Yeah.
people understand each other,
Yeah.
you
But
know.
the diplomats that translates into our conversation in the steps, in the sense that the diplomats, the people that are out there, can't be afraid to engage. They need to be in country. They need to be speaking with people on the ground, and not just their favorites.
Yeah.
Not just it has to be. I very proud of my I was very passionate about Ambassador Khalilzad resigning after the drawdown from Afghanistan, and that was a campaign that I was heavily a part of. And Ambassador Khalilzad was the gatekeeper on Afghanistan policy since Reagan. Like that was
Mhm.
it. It was him,
Yeah.
one guy. When we had all these Afghans in this country from the war, and it's like, and he basically made all the decisions, and then he went to Iraq and made all the decisions there. He was the ambassador of Iraq, and we have two failures, and a lot of it had to do because we had one person that was making all the decisions because he was the approachable senior diplomat Muslim that administrations trusted, and there was no brain trust, right?
Yeah.
But why? It wasn't so. It's not even so much Ambassador Khalilzad's fault. It's the fault of a lot of people that just they don't want to confront or engage on the issues because they don't know, and there's fear, and so they retreat and say, well. In many respects, I feel bad for Ambassador Khalilzad because all the decisions were left on his shoulders, you know, and
Was the
so if you're
comfort zone of a lot of people. So they were looking at it, okay, you know what? Why I go change? Why I go deal with someone I don't know?
yeah.
So I'm comfortable with Mustafa or John. Let me just work with him. You know?
Right. And then on top, and then from one step further, they just say, I'm not going to make a decision because I really don't know.
Yeah.
He's the Muslim, he's the this, he's the that. And so, Ambassador Khalilzad, to a certain degree, is a victim of this idea of a lack of cultural competency, a lack of willingness to engage and really execute the oath of a diplomat, which is to get out there, and be forward and to engage on behalf of the American people to find out what's going on. There's a lot of, you can sit in your office and then you're accompanied with your partner, right? That's there, your wife or whatever, and you're sitting there and you're just living an embassy life, but you're not really experiencing the country or the people, and it's only the people that come through the door. And to a certain degree, there's only so many people that can pass those security checks. That's the other thing. And then you have your favorites, like I said. You have this guy who brings a gift and that guy who does that. So, but I think I was, like I said, the readout, I think, from our conversation is, the new administration, is really needs to take diplomatic engagement seriously, because our diplomatic engagement has really suffered over the last 25 years, and a lot of it is because of wars. It's because of the Arab Spring, because of all these different things, and we're specifically talking, I think, about the Middle East and Muslim majority countries, where we operate. And so, last word, what would you say? What would be the top 3 things this administration needs to do? You're talking to Trump right now.
Yeah. Talk to the member of minority. You don't have to implement it. At least you can listen. At least you can get informed of what is happening in the Middle East, or what the people needs are. We understand that there is not, there would not be a 100% change, but understanding the situation on the ground and talking to the people on the ground will change an administration perspective of the situation in the Middle East, especially. And we have a leverage as a U.S. government to change. If we don't use it, we will lose it.
Yeah.
There is so many things that we can do, and we can take a pride of changing it. We are all about change and all about creating a best picture of United States. And there is so many opportunities that we can do. It's just a matter of using the right tools in the right time.
And we have a diaspora here. We have a brain trust of just about every country in the world, and every faith in the world. So we can, you can tap into those and to figure out how to formulate policy and how to engage appropriately. It's all in front of us.
And as a person who lived in this country past almost 30 years and proud citizen of the United States, every people who are living here, they are the most happiest people.
Yeah.
And they respect their country, and they expect to see that respect from the government as well. I'm proud to hold the American citizenship and American passport. Let's help us to be proud of it in the country, not only outside when we are there with the power of the American passport. Let us, when we come to the country and we come and live and pay our taxes, to be proud that we are a citizen.
Yeah, no, I think that's an important message. Making sure that there's value in the communities that are here, and they are communities of concern around the specific constituency and issues, constituency based and issue based elements that are directly related to the national security status of our country, as well as our social, economic, and humanitarian, and so forth. So, I think it's a pretty strong, powerful message, and I appreciate taking the time, bud.
No, definitely.
And we'll have to revisit this again.
Sure, of course. There's so many things that we can talk about.
Thank you, my friend.